My next guest is Hafiz Shariff. Hafiz joins me on the podcast to talk all things sleep. He is the founder of Owl Lark. Owl Lark is the world's first circadian fitness company. Hafiz exited his first tech startup in 2018 and wanted to make a change not only to his lifestyle, but his sleep. He founded Owl Lark with the mission to help everyone live in harmony with the sleep-wake cycle and have more productive and healthy sleep. On this episode, we cover why sleep is so important for our well-being, sleep fads and gimmicks in the market, what is REM sleep, the future of sleep, and how we can manage our sleep health better. This was a thought-provoking episode, and as someone who struggles with sleep, I found it insightful and educational. I think you will all love this one. As always, please subscribe to the show if you haven't already on YouTube or Spotify, and please enjoy. You just come back from traveling Rio.
I have, yeah.
How was that? Where were you for that? What was the reason you were traveling there?
So I went to Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo.
Okay.
Primarily, ostensibly, the reason was to go for Web Summit. So you know this big tech conference that happens in Lisbon?
I did not know this.
Okay, so it's a huge tech conference that takes over, all of Lisbon.
Yeah.
And they just launched one in Rio a few years ago.
Okay.
And it's really like a gathering point for the whole of like the Latin American tech ecosystem. So I went out there because I met a couple of guys. I met a bunch of Brazilian entrepreneurs when I was at Slush in Helsinki. So that's another tech conference. So that was last, and it was probably the best thing that came out of it was I met these guys in the sauna of my hotel, and they turned out to be like big technologists, right? They have amazing. One guy has this healthcare tech company that's super inspirational. Another guy was involved in like last mile food delivery in Brazil, and they said, "Come to Rio. We're gonna have a good time." So I went out to check out that whole ecosystem, understand a little bit about the sort of health and wellness ecosystem out there, just see what was happening. Got a couple of other friends. One of my friends has started this amazing law firm, and he's doing big class action litigations out in Brazil. So sort of felt like needs to get out there.
Yeah. Was it because you were a lawyer in a previous life, right?
That's right. Although
big change to what you're doing now, right?
It's a big change. But I mean, there are transferable skills, so it wasn't completely out of the out of the realm of possibility. Actually, there are a lot of lawyers who go into entrepreneurship, I think, probably because they're so traumatized by one that they think the other is going to be fine.
Equal stress, but a different way, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. But so I trained as a barrister.
Wow.
Back in, I'm showing my age now, 2010, 2011.
Oh, that's not long ago.
Okay,
You're still young.
That's very kind. 2010, 2011. And then worked for a what's called a white shoe law firm. So it's like a Wall Street law firm.
Wow, okay.
For several years, working in Brussels. And that was, super intense. It was like a real induction, like straight into the deep water of
like Suits vibes.
It was very Suits.
Very Harvey Specter.
In fact, I suspect that they modelled the Suits office on the offices of my law firm.
Very
they looked
pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Jeez, I don't know how people do that job. It sounds like the most stressful. I mean, I guess it's that. I actually heard someone say this. It's like, some of the most stressful and intense jobs, like doctors, surgeons, lawyers, but it's that they pay them because they get paid well because obviously the risk and the reward is so high. But it is a rewarding job, right? Like you get some win good cases and what's the word when you represent? You represent someone, yeah.
The stress, you kind of don't notice it. It creeps up on you. You start doing bigger and bigger work, and you start to mistake stress for excitement and vice versa. It's quite insidious. It creeps up on you, and it does in entrepreneurship as well. But yeah, I mean, super exciting. The very first case I did was this big merger. Like it was all over the news. The characters were, you can't really talk about it. And that's one of the downsides, right? You're doing all this amazing stuff and you like go up to a girl in a bar or something and what do you do? I'm a lawyer. Well, can you tell me about it? It's like, no, I can tell you absolutely nothing about it.
NDAs.
That's a conversation ender. But yeah, no, you get these really exciting clients and usually they're the people doing the most interesting work in the market. So my clients were IBM, Google, Coca-Cola, etc. So you get to hear about all this amazing stuff they're doing, but you're part of it, but you're not actually doing it.
Yeah,
you know?
Makes sense. Is that, I guess that was kind of like that pivotal change where, was there like some kind of day where you were like, you know what, it's just not good for me anymore. My health's declined, my sleep's not doing well, I'm stressed. Was there like a certain, could you like pinpoint it to a certain time, or was it just kind of like a over the time realization that maybe this wasn't the path that you wanted to be on and you wanted to pursue something else?
I always kind of had in mind that I wanted to do something entrepreneurial.
Okay.
So it was always kind of like in the background there. But there was actually a moment when I really think back at sort of like if there was a single kind of crystallizing event and I had taken my dad, this is one of the things you get to do as a lawyer, which I discovered, is I take my mum and dad for a really nice trip to go and see the Venice Biennale, right? First time to Venice.
Nice.
It was a dream come true, right? I'd be able to take them out and show them a good time. So I was with my girlfriend and my parents and my sister. And we were taking a gondola ride, and it was the first one that I'd done. And I get a message on my BlackBerry. So that's really dating. That's really dating me.
I forgot about those.
So I got a message on my little BlackBerry saying, "Can you please send me the market share table or whatever it happened to be that I was working on?" And these are like 30-minute gondola rides, and they cost like £100. And it was the first one that we had done, and we had 2 gondolas. And I asked the gondolier. I didn't actually get off, but I asked the gondolier, "Can you let me get off early so I can run back to the hotel to do this bit of work?"
Jeez.
And I realized this is not.
Yeah.
It's like, it's fun on the one hand because I get to afford all the cool stuff.
You can't even enjoy the fun stuff.
But you can't enjoy it. You got this pressure. And then that was a great moment because I got to talk about it with my dad. And he's an entrepreneur and he knows a lot about stress. I mean, first generation immigrant.
Yeah.
And we got to talk about it. And I said, I think this is how it's going to be. I'm several years in. I think it's going to be like this from now on if I keep doing this. And, what do you think? He said, then it's no different from running your own business. So you may as well just go and do that because you may as well be your own boss and have the same kind of intense requirement for your time.
I guess you're going to be stressed, at least be stressed in something you enjoy rather than being stressed for someone else, working for someone else and being stressed. It's kind of like you're going to be, those stressful moments are going to come either way, but at least you're in control in that aspect. It's funny you said about being on holiday and having to like go back to a hotel. I remember when I worked in London for a luxury ski brand called Powder Burn. I don't know if I think they're still operational now, but obviously COVID took a big hit out of the travel industry and they were very small. But I got to go to Switzerland for a month and learned to ski. It was great. Looking after kids, which I didn't realize I was going to be doing at the time.
Okay.
I was a marketing exec, but somehow I was basically got heckled into looking after 2-year-olds on the slopes and screaming kids. It was fun, obviously, at the end of it. And, some great takeaways from it. But we had, I think it might have been the Sea of ASOS or there was some people paying 30, 40 grand to go skiing for a week. It was luxury, you pick up in a private car, you look after the kids all day. It's 5-star hotels,
sure.
Very much out of my comfort zone. And I'm speaking to this guy who brought his kids and I think he was either a lawyer or investment banker, something, very important.
High stress.
Yeah, high stress. And I said to him, I was like, to make it small. So I was like, do you go skiing today? He was like, no, I couldn't go. I was like, why? He was like, office called, had to do work. It's you spent 40 grand on a holiday with your family. Doesn't see his kids half the day because they're with, the people looking after him. And then in the evening when he's got a bit of time with his wife, he's sat at the hotel bar drinking by himself on a laptop. And I'm like, you've come away on a holiday and you've not even gone on holiday. And I remember he said to me, he's like, do not do a job that you'll resent it. You'll resent everything about it. He said, don't do a job. He's like, be careful what you pick. And he was asking me all these questions about who I was and what I did, which is kind of nice from someone so important.
Nice, free life advice.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. And it was someone some of the people there were not obnoxious. The kids were the same, obviously spoiled brats, all this other stuff, which you'll expect, there's a lot of people there, but I remember him telling me that and it just stuck with me. And this was 2018, I think it was. And you just said, I come on holiday with my family and I can't even enjoy my holiday. And I was just like, this made me feel really bad for him. I mean, I didn't feel that bad for him. He was a multimillionaire and you can afford them. But it was that point of, like you just said there, where if you have all this money and have all this, this great job and, the freedom to take your family places and take your friends places, but then when you're there, you're not actually there. You're always worried about the email or the text on your BlackBerry or whatever it is. And I think it sounds like you had a similar experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's some extent to which, how much sympathy you're going to have for somebody who's making millions, pull out all of your tiny violins. But the truth is that you can be in a really crappy position if you're in this sort of super high stress but low control position. And I read something super interesting by one of my favorite scientists. He's a primatologist. So he studies like chimps and bonobos and stuff. His name is Robert Sapolsky, and he talks about stress, right? And human stress is very similar to primate stress. The people who are the most stressed are never the silverback gorillas, right? The primates that are the most stressed are never the ones at the top of the pecking order, even if they've got the biggest responsibility to take care of everyone. It's the ones that are kind of subsidiary, that have to constantly do what they're told, but they actually have a lot of responsibility. So they don't have a lot of control. And the same seems to be true. Like being low rung middle management is way more stressful in some respects than being the boss who can just say, you know what, I'm not working today.
Yeah.
And I felt that. I really feel like I felt that in my life.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess that's kind of the reason why you probably decided to start something new and, start your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
What was the kind of the whole avenue to sleep? Was that something you were always kind of conscious of, like, sleep health and your own sleep and how that affected you, like your day in the moon? Because I know people, especially now when Whoop bands are coming out and people are becoming more immersed in their health, and people like Gary Brecker, I don't know if you probably listen to a few of his podcasts. He's like a human. He basically made Dana White, the president of the UFC. He was basically almost like 5 years left to live. He was in his 50s, bad heart, bad health, everything. I think he spent 6 months with this guy, and he's now got 30-year life expectancy. He's got a six-pack. He basically did all the blood work. It's very expensive, but he was on. He literally did an episode of Steve Bartlett this week. Came out. It's his second episode. Really, I'll send you a link after. It's really interesting. It's all about health and sleep and like red blood cells and how little things affect other things. And he speaks to a lot of CEO, and he's like, "Tell me, geez, like, do you know about your health?" And like, yeah, I've really dialed in to ask him about the business. Oh yeah, know everything about my business. The employees, how much money we make. Then he starts asking them the little questions about how much REM sleep do you get? What's your white blood cell count? They have no idea because they're so focused. They think they know because they take multivitamins and omega-3s, and they probably have like an 8 sleep mattress or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I guess it's becoming more, I wouldn't say popular but it's in a good way. It's popular. It's a popular trend in a good way because people are becoming more aware of how sleep affects their actual life, how sleep can affect stress. I think Joe Wicks, the body coach, he always says the best pre-workout is a good night's sleep. Yeah. And I've realized the older I get, and you probably the same, the less
prioritize
sleep.
it. Yeah.
I'm like 10 hours a night. It's great.
Really?
Sometimes, yeah. Well, when I was unemployed, I was
overperforming.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
No,
but then I guess it's
good.
like that in the evening. It's like, yeah, like I'm going to the gym and I'm actually feeling tired and I actually want to go to sleep, as opposed to when I was a kid and you're literally fighting every hour to try to stay awake. But I guess, the question is, what made you get into that area? Was there something in particular, or was it more just you fell into it?
Sort of kind of everything you said.
Okay.
It is something that people are getting more and more interested in.
Yeah.
I think because there was a realization sort of in the mid to late noughties that sleep was really important, but people didn't know that much about it. And then a bunch of books came out, like Matt Walker wrote Why We Sleep, which was, I think terrified a lot of people into getting into bed. Yeah, I mean, it's an excellent book, but it's quite alarmist, and it was really popular, New York Times #1 bestseller.
Jeez.
But personally, I had been very interested in fitness and nutrition. So I was going to the gym a lot, too much, right? Yeah. Every morning with no food, I was doing fasted workouts while also working really long days because my first business was in fintech. And so, lawyer to banker was kind of, didn't fully get out of it, but at least it was kind of on my own terms. But working these really crazy hours, trying to get every last drop of performance. And I had in mind this idea that I ought to be able to perform at 100% all the time. And I wasn't giving myself a break to just relax. So if I was feeling tired, I was having more coffee, or I was going back to the gym to kind of to do something else. Because you know that if you go and sort of like do a 10-minute HIIT workout, you kind of get your beans back, right?
100%.
You start to rev up. And as I started researching more about sleep and circadian rhythms and talking to sleep scientists, which I had the privilege to do, went to conferences, I started to kind of understand that sleep was probably the big missing piece of the fitness puzzle for me, as Joe Wick said, right?
Yeah.
If you want to build muscle, get better testosterone, if you want all of your nutritional efforts to actually work and not look tired and look good, during the day, you want to get that night of sleep.
Yeah.
But the further realization for me was about circadian rhythms, which is not many people still know. I mean, we go to exhibitions, conferences, talk to a lot of people who are even sort of notionally in the sleep space. They don't know what circadian rhythms are, and I think that's starting to change, though.
That's good.
So circadian rhythms as a concept kind of wrap all of this stuff together.
Okay.
Because I had heard a lot of the messaging about exercise, right? Follow this routine, you do this much cardio and this much weightlifting and you'll look good and you'll be able to grow.
Yeah, high protein diet, the rest of it, low sugar.
And then I followed a few fads, right? So I did some 5x5 training splits and then some, and then I tried I wouldn't call it a paleo diet, but things like that, just a few different...
Trying different stuff out to see what works.
Different things. But the problem is that they don't kind of wrap together, because you can spend a lot of time pursuing a fitness program and only think about getting your steps and whatever. You can spend a lot of time in a nutrition program and then forget about recovery. And if you don't get your recovery, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The circadian rhythm, this kind of day-night rhythm that governs our whole body, forces you to see everything is interconnected. So if you're really worn out by your workout, you must get sufficient sleep that night. Otherwise, your next day is going to be a bit of a write-off.
Yeah.
And circadian rhythms force you to look at that whole 24-hour cycle and say, okay, I know the program says I ought to be doing another heavy deadlift workout today. But the truth is that I'm just not recovered and it's going to be counterproductive. And I started to realize through consistently getting injured, through approaching burnout pretty much all the time, that I needed to take a more holistic approach. And as I learned more about this, I realized that sleep was the missing bit. The broader picture about circadian rhythms was even more key.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean about the whole, because I could be really on it with gym routine, cardio and make sure I'm getting the abs in at the end, and then my food might be okay, but my sleep's terrible. Or my sleep's really good one week and my nutrition's on it and I'm tracking my calories, but I only manage to go to the gym 2-3 times a week. Or I could be doing everything really great, but then my work side of things starts slipping, because it's trying to fit everything into a balance where you want everything to be 100%, whereas it probably needs to be more 30%, the little bits here, building blocks, right?
We live really complex lives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, every week's not different. Every week's different.
And performance is not just... It's not just going to be made up of how much work were you able to do, how fast were you able to run. You also want to be able to enjoy time with your friends and family.
Yeah.
Actually enjoy that time, not be so tired that you're constantly burned out when you go and, when you go out for a drink. And, that's important. We've forgotten how important that is. But I think COVID really reminded us that we get unwell in strange ways if we don't also have a social life. The UK is going through a crisis right now of people missing work days because of, who knows, all sorts of different reasons. But part of it is that we're, lacking connection.
Yeah. Well, it's like that book, Johan Hari, Lost Connections. I don't know if you've read it. I downloaded the Audible. I think I got 10 minutes into it. I'm really bad at my attention spans. I'm a podcast guy. I really struggle to read books. I realized when I used to buy books and I'm like, why can't I get past 20 pages before I'm, finding something else to do? Just because ADHD brain. I realized the best way to consume for me is podcasts, driving, when I'm driving a lot, because as I drove down this morning, get 2 podcasts in, and then my brain's in the right frame of mind for when I go do stuff like this. But it's funny, you said about, how, building blocks of everything, they all come together really well. People could be I'm really fit and healthy and they, you see their Instagram, they're gymming twice a day, they're running every other night. And then you look at maybe how they actually feel and what they're actually like, and then probably they might be miserable for but because they look good and they probably feel good to a certain extent, doesn't mean their sleep's good, doesn't mean the relationships are good, doesn't mean the social life is good. Like you said, there's like a kind of like a loneliness epidemic, isn't there, at the moment in the UK? And I think we could all benefit from some better sleep as well. I think me definitely, I have quite a bad relationship with sleep.
Really?
Getting better.
Is that because it's sort of the first thing that's allowed to slip if you're busy and stressed?
To be honest, it's always been. I didn't notice this, but I think my therapist a couple of years ago she said, what you're struggling with, and I think I just said I always struggle to get to sleep. My brain's, because I have an overactive brain, like anyone who's like got a bit of ADHD or OCD. Yeah. Your head hits the pillow and you're like, let's solve all of your life problems right now, and I have got a lot better with it. It's, become, training your head, like your mind almost to be a bit more relaxed and kind of just being less stressed. But I think it came down to, she put it down to the fact that when I was a kid, I hated going to sleep because I was always told to get to bed at a certain time. But then because I was so hyperactive, I always had this bad relationship with sleep was punishment because I was getting made to go to bed.
Yeah.
It took me...
probably way before that your body was actually ready
because I wasn't,
for it.
you was used to it. And then when I went to school and high school, college, uni, I think I made like 2 9 a.m. lectures in 4 years because I can't, and I work only in the last couple of years, I realized my best time to work are usually between like 6 and 11 p.m. Yeah. But that's not when school happens. So then I was always just tired in school, tired in college, falling asleep at my 9 till 5 because I just couldn't do it. And then when like working at home came in and more flexible working, my productivity is through the roof because if I need the extra hour of sleep, I can afford to sleep until 10 as long as my work's done. I don't work there anymore, so it's fine. But like, I'd happily just take naps. I'd have to have a nap every day in like the middle of the day. I'm like, what's wrong with me?
But it kind of boils my blood a little bit. You're one of countless people I know who've been through this. I went through it terribly. I mean, I actually think I don't remember huge amounts of my high school days because I was probably chronically underslept. I mean, I was a mega owl during that time, and all the way into starting to work as a lawyer as well, because like your adolescence really stops in your early 20s, not like when you leave school. Your brain is still changing, and that adolescent period is one where the circadian rhythm shifts, and they say the average is 2 to 3 hours, and it's pretty consistent across cultures.
I literally got your tweet up. I got your LinkedIn post.
Oh, you got my link. Okay,
I'm literally about to say, because you wrote a LinkedIn post. Was it a week ago?
Yeah.
Society calls teenagers lazy. Teens undergo rhythm changes until 25. They'll experience circadian rhythm 2 to 3 hours from puberty to 25. Yeah, if you're waking up at 7 a.m., it'd be like waking up an adult at 3 a.m. And then you can't expect them to be at peak empathy. You can't then expect them to be at peak empathy or usefulness or to be constructive.
No.
We expect teenagers to learn. We need to understand their rhythms. Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you woke up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning and somebody said, "Why are you so miserable? Is it just because of your, it's your stage of life?" And like, no, it's because you woke me up at 3 in the bloody morning. And that's true for teenagers, and to differing extents, which is why it can be so difficult to correct or adapt to, because it might be that somebody, puberty happens at very different times for different people. So you can have a class where one person's like a 6'2" giant, and there's another, somebody who's still essentially a child, right? And they might be encountering totally different learning patterns as a result. And we need to correct this as a society because it's just not good enough to essentially pathologize an entire period of development where people actually need the best emotional support they can have. They're going through this really tender and exciting moment of development, discovery, intellectual discovery, discovering all of their, their wants and interests. And then we're kind of waking them up in the middle of the night and expecting them to be productive. And weirdly, that's the period when you're expecting people to consolidate all of these long-term memories so that they can perform in exams. Now that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I hate that exam thing.
There's a lot of research now showing that memories are consolidated more in specific parts of sleep. And if I'm not mistaken, because sleep has an architecture, you go through these sort of 3 cycles of going to sleep, getting your REM sleep, then going into deep sleep. I might be getting that wrong, but you get the general idea. There's an architecture.
There's different parts to it,
and different bits of memory consolidation happen at different times. So if you are consistently waking someone and prodding them and interrupting the memory consolidation phase, or the emotional regulation phase, you're doing them a disservice. And I think we as a society, now that we've got the ability to start monitoring these things, we've got to get better at taking care of people, because it has to do with mental health as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And understanding these circadian differences.
It's mental, isn't it? How people haven't almost clocked on to this. Well, they have, but then we're still. Well, I always say this. That's why I was always bad at exams. I was never very academic until go to college and it's coursework. Oh, all of a sudden your grades are up because you do it on your own time. Before exams, it's just basically who's got the biggest memory, because it was never about skill. It would obviously like maths tests and stuff, I'm sure there is, but you probably all remember doing history and English, and basically it's like who can memorize the book chapters and the quotes better than whoever else, and then it's almost like you're getting put in a box. If you've got a better memory than say someone else, they essentially think of themselves as stupid or not smart because their memory is not as good as say the kid who doesn't need as much sleep. But then you got the other kid who needs X amount of sleep because he's at a certain time in his life, and then he's having to suffer academically, which will then knock on effect later down the line. Which I feel like it's mental. I mean, a lot of people talk about the education system being so outdated, and it's just the stuff we learn, and it's like, why would we never learn about taxes or stocks and shares or mortgage rates? And I'm like, I'm having to learn this now at 28.
But I think we're also waking up from quite a puritanical idea about what people should be doing and what they should be capable of doing, because it's all well and good at school. And I'm lucky I didn't really have this. I had really great teachers who sort of understood what we were going through, but the expectation was still that you turn up at 7:30 or 8 in the morning. But I think now we're kind of shedding this puritanical idea, which is actually a byproduct of a lot of the early science of sleep, before we really understood what sleep was about. A puritanical idea that sleep was like a vestigial kind of, it was just a remnant of our biological past, and that as humans, we should be able to rise above it. We should be able to slowly get rid of the sleep. There was an idea that, if you just cut your sleep by 10 or 15 minutes every week, that after 16 years, you could just stop sleeping. And now we know that's complete nonsense.
Was that actual belief?
That was an actual thought. Wow. I'm not entirely certain what the numbers were, but there was a well-publicized idea that if you slowly trained yourself out of, sleep by small fractions, that you could essentially emancipate yourself from sleep, which goes to this thinking that like sleep is lazy, it's slovenly, that if you're sleeping in, it's because you just don't want to do stuff.
Yeah, lazy teenager.
Yeah.
That's mental. That's crazy. People used to think that. And now it's the opposite, where people are like, you need more sleep.
Yeah, we've got a concept of neurodivergence, and now I think we need to really integrate a concept of like chronodivergence. We're all working on slightly different clocks, and part of the reason is that we're all surrounded by artificial light, right? Our entire environment is very different from how we would have been in prehistory. Yeah. So before artificial light, or really before the electric light bulb.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been camping.
Yeah.
Okay, so right.
If your phone runs out of battery, you're screwed because you can't see anything.
Then you're completely screwed.
Using the stars.
But also after like a week or after a few days of camping, at 9 o'clock you get really tired. Yeah. Your body's like, no, I've had enough of this. There's no sunlight
exhausted,
anymore.
aren't you? Absolutely exhausted.
The temperature change, and it's a kind of reminder that we are animals and that we're kind of living in a slightly maladapted environment.
Yeah, not organic to human behavior, really.
No, and that's good. That's a good thing, because it allows us to be productive and do all sorts of things. But we also need to recognize that that's come with a trade-off.
Yeah, I think that's something I heard on a podcast, probably Moral Wisdom, where it was the seasons very much affected when people worked and what people did, because in winter we're not the men aren't going to be out hunting buffalo past 4 o'clock because it's dark.
Exactly.
So then the day changes from, say, getting up at 7 a.m. to then get up at 9 a.m. because it's lighter. And it's that, we didn't have that light, where in the past it's like you literally had the stars, the moon, the sun, and that was it.
Yep.
And you had to use those days and those hours wisely, because if not, as soon as the light goes, you screwed. Hit now, it's like, it's fine. We got cars, we got car lights, we got phone lights, we got massive torches. You can do pretty much anything. There's the whole like 12 hours of the day things kind of doesn't really it's not really relevant anymore, because we're all so away constantly.
And we insist on more and more things being done out of hours. Like we wouldn't be very happy if we had an NHS that shut down at 9 p.m. because everyone was a bit sleepy, right?
Imagine the
chaos.
Just wouldn't
work, right? And
Yeah.
There are a lot of things in our society that we require this 24-hour,
Of course.
This 24-hour capability. But we also need to recognize that there are some kind of hard-coded biological features that we need to pay attention to. And that's kind of part of what we're doing, what my company Owl Lark is doing.
Yes.
Is to kind of help people to re-understand what is going on in those underlying, in their underlying deep biology of their body. Because actually all of nature has the same circadian rhythm on Earth. It's universal in nature, and we're the only animals that don't pay attention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tell me about Owl Lark. What was the... Obviously, you talked about the inspiration for kind of leaving the kind of the corporate world, to kind of going into the entrepreneurial world. But when did that start? The actual name of the business, when was that? Was that the last couple of years? Has it been an ongoing thing for a while? Like where's it kind of, the genesis kind of started for it?
So that was in 2019.
Okay, so 5 years or so.
Yeah,
now,
5 years about. So that's when we started. That's when I started the company. Named it, started coming up with branding and all the concepts for it. I knew I wanted to get into sleep because it was one of these areas that I felt it was like it was a bit like where fitness was in the 1980s, right? We're still in that moment of sleep where people are starting to understand how to do it properly, that it's important. I like to say that we kind of, there was a moment of like Jane Fonda workouts and, all of that kind of thing. And then nowadays, if you want to get really fit, you can pretty much figure out how to do it, right?
Get personal training,
You get a personal trainer, they'll give you a program, and that program is pretty much science-backed, and it will work pretty much within reason. Yeah. Sleep is not like that.
No.
You cannot just say, I want to sleep better, and then there's a kind of program to follow. But I think we're getting closer to that. So I could see that there was this sort of gigantic fitness size opportunity to do sleep really well. And the things out in the market weren't really doing it. There were no solutions that kind of solved the problem. So I knew that there was something that had to be done, but I didn't know exactly what at that point. So I started the company, and when I talk to people about this, they're sort of like, well, Owl Lark sells mattresses and bedding. I was like, well, there was a lot of deliberation behind that. The idea was to create a sleep business that could get going, start talking to customers rather than spending 2 years in sort of stealth mode, ideating. So we got sleep scientists involved right from the very beginning and technologists. And by creating a cool brand that people like, that could grow on its own steam, but selling a relatively, a well understood product, we were able to kind of bootstrap the idea and think about what intervention we really wanted to make people sleep better. And so over the last 3 or 4 years, we'd been working on the actual technology. So now the entire company is transitioning from being a producer of beautiful sleep and bedroom products to kind of elevating all of that stuff with technology and creating really like cutting edge tech.
Yeah, the stuff that can basically, more like the data-driven stuff where you can actually look at the data and be like, this is why certain things are doing this. This is why.
Exactly.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Which is the stuff, like, I mean, that's the stuff that people care about now as well, don't they? The more people want to have more data about stuff. We spoke about earlier about how people are becoming more aware of their health and the sleep. And
well, you say data, right?
Okay.
I don't think people necessarily want more data.
No.
And I think that's the kind of, that's the nuance. And I think that's where we're moving now. People are flooded with data. I mean, I'm wearing these, I've got an Oura ring, I've got an Apple Watch. If there was a bracelet and an anklet and a chest strap, I'd probably wear it.
What those? I know one person who has all those rings. Apparently, they're really good. They're like really, because obviously they last quite a long time, don't they? Charge wise,
they last like 7. I think what they've done here is amazing. Okay, don't get me wrong. I think what they've done is amazing. I find that I'm kind of addicted to using the app as well. And I get this sort of palpable disappointment in the morning. If I go and check the app and I've run out of battery, I'm like, oh, what was the point of even sleeping?
What a waste
of the night. And especially if it's a good one, right? Because then I'll be like, it'll be sort of 7 in the morning and I'll say, well, I got into bed at like 10:30 and that would have been like an 89 score. And I've missed it. But that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because that score, as good, as useful as it is to be able to track. So, I've had a few realizations by using the ring, but it's still just pumping out scores. And amounts of REM sleep and,
Yeah.
and giving me a kind of approximation of my sleep.
What's it like at the
architecture.
moment? Is it good? Your REM sleep?
It's absolutely terrible.
It's
It's the worst that it has been in a long time.
the irony of...
No. Everybody, if people ask me, how are you sleeping? I'm like, well, not very well. It's because of
You're
all
thinking
the
about
travel.
sleep.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about sleep. God, at the beginning, when we started producing
Wow,
our
really?
first products, it was really bad because I was both in like relaxation mode and testing mode. I'm like, this is a nice weighted blanket. Yeah, but is it ever so slightly too slick? And are the buttons working? And
Thinking too much about it, trying to go to sleep.
Yeah, that's actually a really bad thing for your sleep, is to try and make sleep products that you're testing at the same time.
Jeez, yeah, I can
I've
imagine.
learned.
I can imagine.
But the point with all of these devices is that they're spitting out huge amounts of data, but they're not necessarily making useful and personalized recommendations. There's another thing that if they could do, and if they would do, I think would be really useful. And that would be to ask me, how do you feel? Okay. If you've slept like shit and the app says you've slept like shit, you'd be like, well, thank you very much. I already
I already feel like shit. Thank you.
Yeah. I feel like it. So at least it all kind of hangs together.
Yeah.
What would be great is if it could actually ask you, how do you feel? How was your energy during the day? And instead of just optimizing for perfect sleep, optimizing for how you actually feel. What is your subjective sense of well-being across lots of different parameters? Then there's also this question of what is your energy like during the day? How alert are you? Asking you, our bodies have this sort of circadian component to the way we think and the way we empathize. And for example, you mentioned 6 to 11 p.m. is when you do your best. You do your best work.
Focus is their best, yeah.
Well, that is biological.
Yeah.
And that has to do with your overarching rhythm.
Because
And
it's
whether-
not changed. I thought, people like you train yourself to get up early in the morning. Hasn't worked.
And it's possible to shift.
Yeah, of course,
It's
yeah.
possible to
Definitely got
shift.
better, yeah.
But if it is what it is, that is an interesting input to then start to be able to track. But it's also true for your metabolism, your digestion,
Yeah.
your muscle tone, all of these different, parts of your body. And so what we're doing is we're building the world's first model of the human circadian rhythm, pulling data from as many different sources as we can get it, and creating a sort of recommendation engine using some of the same technologies that Spotify uses to recommend tracks. And we're creating that recommendation engine. So that's going to power the sort of software side. And then at the same time, we're building a device that sits on your bedside that will become the sort of brain of your bedroom. It's going to connect to other devices in your bedroom and provide a really, let's say, it's going to feel low tech, but it's ultra high tech inside. This kind of low tech lifestyle companion that you can move around your home, that wakes you up with bright light in the morning and then continues throughout the day to kind of give you light and give you recommendations and sort of form this sort of new relationship with a device that also knows what's going on with your circadian rhythm.
That's so smart. I'm excited to see what they look like the actual...
I'll show you a picture when we're done. We've
Yeah.
got an amazing team.
Yeah.
And we actually just won, in December, we won a grant from the British government through Innovate UK.
I think I saw you put on LinkedIn. I think I saw that on your LinkedIn.
Yeah,
maybe
we've
like a month ago or something
We've
like
just
that.
started posting about it, partly
Yeah.
because up until now, so much of what we were doing is like ultra proprietary, and we're trying to keep it as a close
Of course,
hold.
yeah.
But as we've been raising money and and doing all of that, we've started talking about it more and more. But yeah, it's super exciting. We've got, the engineers are making things that are just going to blow people's minds, but also in a nice way.
Yeah, yeah.
The trick is to not be dystopian, because I think there's a lot of like crazy dystopian stuff happening at the moment.
So it's a weird change at the moment, aren't we? Going through AI and everything else, and just I'm kind of scared to see what some people come up with in the next couple of years. It's going to be, I think the next 5 years will be a big game changer just in tech in general, because everyone's fighting everyone's like, especially in AI, every country's fighting to be the first to do something, because it's where the money is. Like, if you come up with something amazing, the guy did ChatGPT, he's probably laughing because obviously there's other softwares that are similar, but I use it. I think I don't really use it that much, to be honest. I just don't. I see the use of it, but then I'm like, I feel like I'm spending more time and effort telling what to do, and I might as well just do it myself.
Yeah.
And it's like I do job applications. I was like the other day, I was like, oh, I use ChatGPT to write me a paragraph, and I was like, it's not going to sound like me. And the whole point is that they want to know who I am. So then if I'm using a computer to write a paragraph about myself,
either they'll find that they'll know,
Yeah.
and they'll make it look bad, or it just being disingenuous in a way. And I think,
these things are getting better and better. We had the period when everybody was making models, right? So there was a lot of very specific models being created to solve particular problems, and people were being funded to build these models. And then we're now in the era of like LLMs, these large language models, and the diffusion, stable diffusion, and all of these like these video creation things, which are mad. I mean, they're just so impressive.
It's insane.
But I think, and this is what I'm getting from just speaking to people that are involved in this area and, working with our team, it's moving now to just, again, solving real problems that real people have. We're not in that kind of, I think we're moving out of that frothy moment when people are just interested in creating the tech for the sake of tech, and we've got the tech, and now we're trying to figure out which problems we can solve. Now we're trying to figure out, now we've got a good understanding of what the tech can do. We're sort of reapplying it back to specific problems. And this is one such problem. If we can predict and understand what your body is likely to do and what your cognition is likely to do over a 24-hour cycle, it's going to be so powerful, helping with time supplement intake and exercise timing and food timing. There's a huge component of there seems to be a significant relationship between the timing of your meals and type 2 diabetes and other kind of metabolic diseases and chronic diseases. There's a lot of research done out of Salk Institute and various other places showing that there's this robust connection. And now people are wearing blood glucose monitors and just looking at the data.
Is that the Zoe thing?
Zoe does.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not using one. Apparently quite expensive.
But I think it's pretty cool.
Is it worth the money?
I mean,
if you suffer it.
I've not done their full program, but I've met people who have.
Really?
I have some family members who've used it. It's pretty impressive.
It's a subscription model, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I know Steve Bartlett's an investor or something of it, I think.
I mean...
Wouldn't surprise me.
No, but they're really science. But I think what they've done is really spectacular. And they're, I think, part of this vanguard who are taking the data but making it really useful. So you can actually get, from your 2-week intervention, you can actually get really meaningful, useful information about how you can live your life sort of going forward.
It's mental, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for a lot of people who have, more serious health conditions and who maybe suffer with, chronic pain or digestion problems, sure, like for the average healthy person, there's be a benefit to it, I'm sure. I know a lot of people, you see a lot of reviews. I did a little bit of research on it and I thought, this is super interesting, and I think a lot of people have found benefits from using stuff like that. Same with Whoops, actually. I was going to ask you about what you thought about Whoop bands, and obviously probably more relatable is is it 8 Sleep?
8 Sleep, yeah.
So I was actually going to buy one. They're not
big
cheap.
investment.
They're not cheap.
No, they're not.
But then also someone was like, they got one. The worry was I was like, I'll get one, but all the people I know who've got one or the reviews I've read, they've all said that as soon as they go anywhere that's not home, like hotels, friends' houses, the sleep is just bad because they're so used to having the regulated temperature and everything else. And it's almost being like they miss going back to the house. And obviously if you're always traveling, it's like, well, I don't want to have I could be better at home and then resent the fact I've got to stay in a hotel for a weekend. So,
that speaks to a good product.
Yeah, it does, 100%.
We have the same, I have the same thing with an Owl Lark mattress. And I used to have a hydronic cooling pad, not from 8 Sleep, but from another. We've tested a few of these things.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And we found that keeping the room at a consistent temperature with good bedding I got higher sleep quality than I did with any hydronic cooling pad. Now, I'm sure 8 Sleep will tell me that theirs is even better. And there'll be more of these coming up, and we know of a few more coming up.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I think the priority should be around all the other sleep hygiene, because it's a lot of money to spend.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money to spend that I think it should be one of the final things that you spend on. And we say that to people about mattresses as well. If you've already got a decent mattress, you don't have to invest £2,000+ on a new mattress. If that's probably not going to be the single thing that fixes your sleep.
No, it might be one small factor, but there's also all the.
It's a significant factor if your mattress is bad.
Yeah.
And it's, do you know what I mean? Like it's something you want to fix if it's not working well. Same with your bedding. But these are kind of little marginal gains that you can make to have a really good setup. Focusing on your overarching well-being and your sleep, what they call sleep hygiene, which is a crappy term, but it just makes it sound like you're dirty somehow. But I don't like it. Getting the kind of we should come up with a new one, but getting the getting the basics right. making sure that you're not necessarily like wearing blue light blocking glasses, but you're de-stimulating your environment in the hour before sleep, that you're not, you're not doing silly things, or you're going to bed expecting to fall asleep straight after watching an hour of TikTok videos.
Yeah.
That's not going to do you any favors. Things like that, making sure that you've kind of got the full suite of sleep hygiene is probably the place to start before you spend a lot of money.
Yeah, I was going to say what you said about temperature in rooms. I know there's a big thing about colder rooms are actually better, because I know I'm a very warm-blooded person. I go to my friends' houses, they've got the heating on, they've got literally all the windows are closed, and I'm going to bed, I'm like, I can't sleep. It's because it's easier to be cold and get warm than it is to be warm and get cold. Like, do you mean it's the opposite? So I sleep with my windows open constantly, even in winter. Right. I live in my family home's a very old house in the middle of a hill somewhere. It's absolutely Baltic. But I find I sleep better when it's absolutely freezing, because obviously your body temperature regulates itself as you go into deep sleep. It goes to a certain level.
Your body is like 1 trillion cells, all with their own metabolism producing heat. And they're pretty good at regulating their own temperature if you give them the right environment in which to do it. I have yes, having a cooler room is an absolute, it's a no-brainer. It makes it will make your sleep better. Having a cooling bed that is adjusting to your body might be a little bit overkill. It might be great for some people. For me, it wasn't. But just being able to monitor and manage your room's temperature. We're a bit unlucky in the UK because we don't have central air conditioning or anything like that. Yeah. And it's becoming more relevant as time goes on. But certainly, being able to control knowing your room's temperature. I have this feeling, right? I think one of the targets that I have in terms of sleep is making the bedroom as capable as other rooms in the house. So for the most part, when you're designing a new house, most people think of their bedroom in terms of a few conveniences and design, right? So when I say design, I mean aesthetic design. What color is it going to be? Is there going to be enough storage? What's the bed going to be like? And some thoughts about ventilation. When you compare that to your kitchen is so super designed so that every single space has its function, is not going to kill you, and is, you know what I mean? Because you've got dangerous stuff, but then you go back to the bedroom and you think, this is actually probably the most important room of my house. Yeah. In terms of your overall health, it contains the most important piece of furniture, which is your mattress. It contains the most important temperature-controlled environment. It contains the space where you do the vast majority of your recovery, and it's probably the space where you spend the single largest chunk of time in your life. Yeah. And most of us don't give any thought to how carefully that environment is calibrated and controlled. That is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. No, I can already see it happening.
And our device, a primary device, without being dystopian, is going to be monitoring that environment and making sure that it exists within certain parameters. But I encourage everybody just to think about it. Think about your room in terms of sleep, really give it that thought. What's the lighting like? Can it get really dark at night? Can you make it cool enough and consistent enough that you can sleep? And if you can't, those are really clear areas to be
start looking improving. At things like that before you start spending $2-3 on a mattress, essentially straight away. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Because I actually bought some of those blue light blocker glasses. Used them once or twice, gave me a headache. Probably because it's just getting used to something in front of your face. A lot of people are now using red light therapy in the morning. Yep. I don't know what your thoughts and stuff like that. Do you think they're beneficial? Is it a bit more of a fad? Is it just a way for us to spend money? I don't know.
Okay.
It's difficult to know, isn't it? What's right and what's not.
It is. I mean, blue light blocking glasses, by and large, I think are a bit of a fad, and they look weird. So, and it's not enjoyable to watch TV. I think reducing the overall amount of blue light that you get in the evening, you can do in other ways. You can, we've already got those apps on phones and screens or whatever that shift into the orange part of the spectrum.
Night mode. You mean? I use that 9 p.m. Just nice on the eyes, like going through Twitter and stuff, X Twitter, whatever it is called now. Yeah, it's just a lot nicer. I find it's just easier on the eyes because I have my screens so bright. I gave my friend my laptop last night, and he was like, really excited on full brightness, everything. Yeah. It's like, geez, and he turned it down. He was working. I was like, I couldn't even see that because I haven't saved my phone. My phone's always on 100% brightness.
Oh, really?
Don't know why. It's just I feel like sometimes it auto adjusts for you when you go out in the sun. And I'm like, what are you doing? Go back. Just because I like to see things clearly, and I'm always editing stuff, so I like to see things in full brightness. Sure. My friend was like, that's probably not good for your eyes. And I have the TV at the edge of my bed as well, like literally.
You've got a TV in your bedroom.
So I've got a TV. It's 56-inch TV, literally.
Crikey, so you're like living in the picture.
Literally, and my friend came over. He was like, how do you watch that? It's probably like the edge of that table, and I'm like in bed like that, and I'm
so
like,
you can kind of like replicate IMAX sort of screening anytime you want. Okay, so
probably not good.
In my humble opinion, you may not want. That's a lot of stimulation, right?
Yeah.
So, certainly before bed, it's a lot of light, but because of the way light tails off, if you just have your TV a little bit further away and you turn your phone down a little bit and you use the night mode and you make sure you get enough light during the day that you've got a really high amplitude light during the day and in the early morning, then your brain is actually pretty good at recognizing the difference between night and day. Now, if you work in a hospital or in a place with fluorescent lights, or if you're in a studio like this and you're exposed to kind of like middling levels of light all the way through the day and the night, then you might want to really think about getting outside early in the morning so you get the light from outside, which will actually be like 1,000 times brighter or 100 times brighter than it is in here. Making sure that you get periodic bits of movement to get outside during the day. And then in the evening, you're sort of quite deliberate about turning down the lights. Again, that's one of the things we're trying to solve because it's not super easy. In fact, we did a little experiment within a few members of our group and just said, okay, this is what an ideal light diet would look like. Let's say going out 7 or 8 times a day, achieving this lux intensity. And even I couldn't do it because it required it required like leaving the apartment while I'm still in my pajamas and then, in the middle of lunch or in the middle of a call, and I just couldn't do it.
Just not,
So more like life gets in the way.
Yeah, of course.
But there are things we can do to just limit and start to simulate the natural waxing and waning of light in the morning and in the evening. But what you say about red light is very interesting because our chief sleep scientist, Nick, he is currently working on a research project to investigate the effects of infrared, near infrared light. I may be getting that wrong. It's research in progress on the sleep-wake cycle and on the circadian rhythm, which is to say, there's not a huge amount of evidence just yet, but it's all suspected.
That's crazy. I know light plays a big impact in sleep. I know people say don't be on your phone an hour before bed. You tell yourself it and you're like, okay. Now I'm got a lot better. Sometimes I'm like scrolling. I'm like, what am I doing? I'll put it down. I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to be on a screen, at least be on a TV further away than it is in my face.
Yeah.
And then I'll try not to. I'll wake up in the middle of the night sometimes. And I'm like, where's my phone? Because it's like a panic. Because it's like almost like a unconscious feeling like something's wrong. And I'm like, and the first thing to do is grab my phone. It's never to like turn the light on. It's like, where's my phone? It's like almost like
if you can take your phone out of your bedroom.
Yeah, my friend said that. Because he said just get one of those old alarm clocks that do the same thing.
Yep.
Put your phone outside your room at like 10 o'clock if you're going to bed around 11:30. He's like, there's nothing wrong with a TV, like watching something, but just don't have your phone on sleep mode.
And it's not just the light. It's also this device is just a stimulation engine, right?
Yeah.
There have been studies showing that merely having it on the desk is enough to distract your attention with like measurable, it's significant, right?
It's
you can actually measure it. So try and get it out of the room. So it's not there.
Temptation's gone,
Temptation's gone. The actual object itself is not stimulating and arousing your mind. They've even done studies, studies have been done to look at the effect of having a computer in the room or a screen in the room, and they've shown a measurable difference in sleep onset when you just cover it with a cloth. Because we are highly stimulated by our environment. Merely seeing things really makes a difference for us, knowing that they're there.
It's crazy how the science works, isn't it? I literally heard this the other day that apparently, when you're on a plane and most people don't get the Wi-Fi because it's ridiculously expensive.
Yep.
You're sat there watching a film. You'll literally go into your pocket, pull your phone out. Oh, I can't use it.
Yeah.
But it's almost like an unconscious, it's almost like a reassurance thing. It's like when you go into, I used to do this a lot, still probably do when I go into crowded rooms. The first thing I do, pull my phone out.
Yeah, kind of social
anxiety.
Because
at least I'm not like walking around, my hands in my pockets, like looking like a dodo, at least I'm like, I've got friends on my phone, like I'm busy.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you like walk around like looking around like pretending to text, because we're so used to having them in our hands. And there's definitely, I know there's a lot of studies around like, children try not to have phones and starting them having phones later on off social media for a certain age. And
Big topic at the moment.
yeah, massive. I know like a lot of schools are campaigning against like no phones in schools, or having like lockers for phones, which I think we're probably from a different generation of like, I think I got my first iPhone when I was 18.
Yeah.
And it was like the iPhone 5 or whatever it was. And then I think my first one when I was like 14, it was one of those little crappy little Samsung flip up phones.
Yeah.
And now I'm going places and I'm walking around the
you
street.
went from an iPhone to a Samsung flip phone.
Samsung to an iPhone to an iPhone. But I see kids now and they've all got iPads, and they've all got the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and they're like 12-year-olds, and they're on 9 hours on TikTok. And I just find it so ridiculous. But then you look at mental health in kids, you look at sleeping kids, you look at like just all these bad after effects of basically, technology.
It's not just kids.
It's not just kids. We're
It's
just
not
as
just
bad.
kids.
Though.
It's all
I
of
guess
us.
we're trying to save the kids first.
Yeah, exactly. Save the kids first. Sure, that's a great priority. But we're all going through it.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I find books quite helpful like that, because I have the same experience as you of like opening a book and just realizing that I can't physically concentrate on a sentence. My brain is just not in that space right now. And I take it as a challenge, and I will just sit there and kind of
Actually, don't give it. You're like, I'm going to read this book.
Squint until it's starting to make sense. And sometimes it doesn't. But I never used to have that problem before having a phone,
Yeah, I think life was simpler. I think we should.
Simpler time.
We could all do. I think we could all do. We filmed this episode at the Carugo Studios. It's the first studio dedicated to personal branding content like Reels, podcasts, and YouTube. You can use it for yourself or have Carugo's expert team help you. It's based on Fleet Street in central London, and to find out more, visit caruga.co.uk/studio for more info, or drop me a message.
I remember going to hostels before phones, right? And no one was sitting there on their phones, right?
Just talk to people.
It was difficult.
What was that like?
Really no other option. And if somebody was reading a book, you could be like, "Oh, how's that book?" And they'd be like, "Thank God you've saved me from having to read this book." But that doesn't happen anymore.
No.
And you go traveling, and everyone's sitting in a cafe by themselves, or even me. I'm like, "Oh, I'd love to talk to somebody," and I'm thinking that while looking at a bit of news that I'd rather not.
Yeah.
It's
almost like that socialness of like you sit on a plane now. Obviously, we have the TV in front of you. If you've got things to distract you. I always now when I go on a plane, if I sit next to someone say like my age, we rarely have a conversation. Last time when I went to Australia and back, I was sat next to a woman who's probably in her 80s, and I had my headphones in or trying to watch a film, and she kept trying to talk to me, and I was like, but she sat there and she literally just looked at the plane. You can play it on the screen sometimes. You could watch the travel.
Yeah,
she was probably for like an hour and a half just
gazing,
just chilling. And then even on the way back, I was sat next to this dentist. She was a retired dentist, and she was just like chatting to me, and I was like, it's quite nice, because then the other time when I sit next to people who are like say my age, they like literally headphones on, turn the other way, you maybe say hi or like how's your holiday. But the older generation, like they want to talk to you, they want to have questions, and it's actually like I felt like a bit like, oh, they're so annoying. But then also I'm like, they come from a different generation where conversations on planes was probably normal. Same with trains and stuff and bus stops. But you do that now, you're just a creepy dude at a bus stop. But it's like people are like, why do you mean you're having conversations? And I mean, I'm from the north where everyone's fairly friendly. I mean, I come down to London on the tube. You try and say hello to someone on the tube, you're going to get some bad looks.
I actually had an interesting experience just now because I was in Brazil. Because I was in Brazil, and in Rio de Janeiro, it's an amazing place, but it's not so phone friendly that you can like walk around with your phone out because it's going to get taken.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. Yeah.
So just didn't have it, and ended up having a lot of like little ad hoc conversations, waiting in queues or whatever. It's really nice.
Really, like kind of like refreshing, isn't it, to kind of go somewhere and see what other people's like cultures are like. Yeah, because I know a lot of my friends go to like Mexico and places like that, and they literally have hotel bars and beach bars that there's no phones. It's like there's like the signs that say there's no Wi-Fi here. Don't even bother getting your phone out.
Yep.
Because they want people to go and enjoy the experience. Same with like Joe Rogan when he does comedy shows now in Austin. They have to put the phones in lockers in bags before they go into the room. Because he said, I want people for 90 minutes. I want you to be enjoying it, not looking for your phone,
rather than
doing that. Yeah, and also because if you're filming everything and we're doing the same set tomorrow night, you're going to ruin the joke jokes and set for someone else who's maybe coming to enjoy it tomorrow. And he was like, people literally walk out and they're having conversations and everyone's like talking to people who are sat next to. There's no, you get from the cinema and you're like, everyone's like, you see all the lights go like that all up and everyone's like, fine, I can go on WhatsApp again, fine, I can go on Instagram. I'm the same, you know, film ends. I sometimes find myself in the cinema going to the toilet and taking my phone with me so I can check messages for those couple of minutes when I'm missing a film when I've never seen before. And I'm like, what am I doing? And you see people, I mean, it probably gets worse the younger people get. I feel like, you know, the older you get, they're probably more aware of it. But I mean, we're still just as bad, you know, being on phones and stuff and probably scrolling when we probably shouldn't be scrolling. And it affects, like you said, our sleep and longer term things like that. So
and my parents' generation, they've been hijacked just as much as we have, but just by slightly different things.
Google Homes,
you know, they're not looking at
Siri.
They're not looking at Instagram. Frankly, I don't even know what they're looking at. My dad's playing, you know, games or whatever.
My dad's the same.
But they, you know, there are so many different parts of our brain that different apps on the phone have found a target to hijack. And sort of like going back to this whole wearables and fitness and data thing, a lot of that experience has been gamified. And the good side of that is that you can pay attention to all of your health habits. And some of these companies are really effective at making sure that you check how your VO2 max is developing.
You score, you strain, you sleep, REM sleep, that kind of thing,
Exactly. But the flip side is that you are just entering into a kind of like, you know, a doom loop. Or, you know, it's kind of like doom scrolling, but for your own health, which can have more insidious effects.
It's true. I mean, when I got this Apple Watch 2 years ago, and I think
I was going to ask you, do you wear that to bed?
No, only because the charge is crap. So I take it off. But I use it mainly just because I got a PT and I was like, you know what, if I'm going to get serious into this health thing, I'm going to get the Apple Watch. I'm going to, you know, get another gym membership. I'm going to pay for that extra little few things that will make maybe a little bit easier to, you know, get up and do the stuff. I found myself literally religiously checking my steps. And if I wasn't doing 12,000 a day, it'd be like half an hour at night. I'd go for a walk for 20 minutes just to get my finger up. Or sometimes if I'm like 995 calories, I'll walk around my room for 10 seconds to just get to 1,000. So I can be like, yes, made my circles. And it's like, it's obviously, it's not as bad now. I don't really care as much because I've realized it's probably just a waste of time. Doing an extra 1,000 steps a day is probably...
Step counters and pedometers have been super helpful for people.
Yeah, they are. That's what genuinely I think it's good. Yeah. It's one of the best things I bought because it is good. But I found myself checking my levels all day. It's like if I didn't get to 1,000 calories, I'd have failed that day. And now I do like maybe 800 calories a day burning, and I'm like, I don't really care if I hit my circles anymore.
It's a lot of movement.
It's a lot of movement. To be fair, I walk around a lot, but it's like that thing of like, oh well, if I'm at the gym and I'm like 195 calories. I might as well stay an extra 5 minutes to get those extra. It's in a good way. In a way, it's good, but it's also, like you said, it's gamifying it, and you're almost getting obsessed with the data too much. Where is it really going to benefit you? Like doing those extra 5 minutes, probably not. But then
the consistency, I guess, is what benefits you.
Yeah, and of course.
I think what's nice about these, I like to think of them as interventions, right? So early on when you got your watch, you decided to do your, what did you say, 12,000 steps?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So my dad did something very similar to, you know, when he was losing weight. I've done something similar in the past. And you use that and you have this sort of monitor that's tracking your progress towards what we think is a goal, but it's actually a habit. Yeah. So you can use these interventions 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, whatever, to start to create the habit. So if you want to sort of sleep train yourself or start to improve your sleep hygiene, an Oura Ring can give you very quick feedback on whether or not what you really need to do is just cut out that pint in the evening, right?
Yeah.
And it can start to help you understand that. But once you know that, one questions the value of constantly checking the data. However, knowing the way the data is moving over time, let's say over months or years, as your rhythm is changing and as you may be under more or less stress, that's really interesting as well. So I think it's about balancing, not taking that kind of initial highly intense like health checking behavior into your daily life, but taking the habit that it helps create into your life and then being able to like drop in and check how things are going on a semi-regular basis.
Oh no, I absolutely love looking at like you can literally go on phone now and a health app and say you did on average an extra 1,000 steps a day in 2023 than you did in 2022.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's probably because subconsciously I knew I was watching my step count as like you said, it's a habit. So then I got in a habit of having a walk after lunch every day, 7 days a week. And then I always went on an evening walk if it wasn't raining at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I got in a habit of doing 14 walks a week, which before I was maybe doing
That's
one or
great.
two. No, I don't do it as much anymore because I realised that.
Go back to that.
Yeah, I know. I need to start
was
doing
great.
that. Well, I know that walking after a meal at lunch, especially for like
Yeah.
15 minutes, is great for digestion and just stuff like that. But I got into a habit of it. And it was almost obsessive where even my dad was like, why are you going out at this time? It's pitch black. I'm like, I need to get my steps in. But it was almost like a habit, but it was a healthy habit. And then I was, I lost loads of weight and I was a lot more fitter, and just I think my BPM, my resting BPM was like 51 or something. It's now up to like 65. Don't know what happened there. Stress.
Well, you stopped doing it. But,
Yeah.
But this is it. I'm guessing you also enjoyed the walking, right?
Yeah, because I put a point, it gave me time
nice
to
thing do.
podcasts. I consumed much more information every week while also exercising. And then now when I go to the gym, and especially on the treadmill, I'll watch like a Chris Williamson episode for 45 minutes, and I always forget I'm working out because I'm literally exercising and learning at the same time.
Yeah.
Same when I'm driving quite a lot every week, or say I come to London, it's like 7 or 8 hours in the car. I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time by listening to music. If I have to be stuck in this position, let's do something productive. So stick on Steve Bartlett, Joe Rogan, Modern Wisdom. I listen to a lot of Newlyweds podcasts. Don't judge me. I don't know if you know that. But it's just fun. And I'm like, for me, it's like I come off the journey and I'm like in a better frame of mind, especially if I'm coming to London to do a podcast like today. I listened to like 2 hours just of like Chris Williamson's voice, even though it was it was literally to do about like Gen Zs and how kids are worse off than they were, and literally what we've been talking about, phones and stuff like that. And then I come here in a better frame of mind and I've got information that I can utilize then in an episode because it's relevant. I mean, luckily enough, that information was relevant today, but sometimes it could be some absolute crap podcast. But
Okay,
still.
so how do you then switch off?
I
Really
don't.
completely destimulate.
I don't. I literally, my mom says it all the time. She's like, you need to relax. And she's like, you need to start. My ex used to say it to me all the time. She's like, I don't know if I've ever seen you undoing something. She's like, you're always doing something. Even if watching a film, I'll be doing some kind of work or messaging someone, or it's only really until I get to like the evening when it's just me, where I can be like, okay, these are my 8 hours to myself, 9 hours to myself. But I live in a house with 4 lads, so they go to bed, and the next day they're always like, I can hear you. It's like, were you running around last night in your room or something? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, what were you doing? And I was like, oh, I think I was doing 30 minutes on the bike. And she's like, it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, couldn't sleep. And but then for them, that's strange. But for me, that's like my time to get to work or to do those extra things. But that's just the way I work.
So I think I have a really interesting, I think I have, and probably you do as well, have an interesting relationship with boredom.
Yeah.
Like, I remember a time before Netflix when I was just bored all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Especially when you're a kid as well.
Sometimes you'd be so bored that the only thing you could do was your homework.
Or sleep.
Or sleep.
Okay.
It's like, oh, I'll just do it. It was kind of a capitulation to the demands of your parents and your sort of physics teacher. But I think we've now got so many ways of avoiding that boredom that it may be wreaking a slow and quiet havoc. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I worry that we've tried to make every moment so productive that we can't allow that sort of like the quiet buzzing background that happens when you go for a walk without AirPods.
Yeah, people say to do that. Then they say go walk in nature without any headphones, and I mean, it's what my therapist used to say. She's like, sit with your thoughts, and I'm like, that sounds awful. Like, I don't want to do that. Why would I do that? So that when I go to sleep now, I listen to rain music every night because without any stimulus.
But at least that's not verbal.
Yeah, true. And it's not like I used to have a TV. I used to have the TV on to fall asleep to because I didn't like sleeping in pitch black, and I literally sleep with my curtains half open because I like to wake up in it. I'd rather be woken up by the sun than by the alarm. Usually it's the alarm, but at least when I wake up, I have to go, if I have to get up out of bed, to close the curtains at least. If they're already open,
It's kind of just forced the...
I'm always half out of bed.
Yeah.
But I like the sunlight in the morning. I go to some people's houses, they've got blackout shutters, and like you said, when you go camping, you turn the light off, it's like pitch black. Can't see your hand. That terrifies me. I feel like I'm in a coffin. I hate it.
I quite like that.
Do you like that? It's weird though. Some
like
people like certain things, or people like warm rooms. People like we spoke about earlier, cold rooms, warm rooms, windows open, windows closed, all that stuff. And I think and like you said, everyone's different. So I know that's why, like, you'll notice about as well, a lot of CrossFit athletes, they use those like temperature controlled beds, and they say, oh, well, I sleep really warm, but my wife sleeps really cold. And there's those mattresses that have the one side's warm. And I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, this guy was on this podcast and he was saying, he's like, until I got that mattress, our relationship was at a point where I'd sleep in another room because I love to sleep in freezing cold with like just a sheet.
Yeah.
And she's got like 2 jumpers on and a duvet and a heated blanket. And it's like, we couldn't sleep in the same bed. So that sometimes like stuff like that actually saves relationships because people realize that, you know, and I'm not great to sleep in a bed with. I kick and fidget and I have rain music playing at them. But
Sure.
So I'm not easy.
And you're going on the bike at 11
Yeah.
p.m. And it's going to be disruptive.
I'm waking up at 4 a.m. for a snack.
Sorry, sweetheart. I'm just doing some exercise. I hope you don't mind.
That's probably why I'm single, to be fair. But no, there's plenty of other reasons for that. Got a couple more questions. What we spoke about, obviously, there's other products out there, but what's like the main issue, do you think, with other products on the market? Do you think there's just a lot of, like we spoke about, like blue light glasses? Do you think there's a lot out there, just like a money-making schemes, maybe a bit of a fad to kind of get people to spend money? Do you think there's some products out there? Obviously, you'd have to sing the praises of other companies, but do you think there's anything out there that's doing well? Or like you said, it's going to be a big shift in the next 5 years anyway?
It's such a growing market that I'm happy to sing the praises of people that are doing well, because we're talking about a world that's growing. This market is growing at like 17, 18% a year.
Jeez.
I mean, that and compounding, right? So it's just growing and growing and growing. It's going to be more than 100 billion in the next within the next 10 years for sleep tech devices. So there's a huge space there, and I want it to be filled with nuanced, thoughtful, you know, whether they're devices or apps, things that actually help you. I say nuance. I mean nuance in their understanding of how sleep and circadian rhythms and all that work, but simply delivered stuff that is science-backed, that actually works. There's a lot of snake oil out there at the moment, and you know, you can buy a lot of weird supplements. There's a lot of weird type sleep supplements into Amazon and just get this great big fucking cocktail of weird and wonderful herbs from around the world.
Do you like ashwagandha? What about ashwagandha? I take that usually in the evening, just one tablet. My PT told me to take it for stress.
I mean,
but
I have gone through periods of taking it.
Yeah.
And I think I've got a similar relationship with that as with a couple of other things, right? I've gone through periods of taking it and then being like, this isn't making a difference. And then I'll go online and be like, benefits of ashwagandha. And then I'll watch a few videos. I'm like, I'm convinced again. I'll buy it. So I've been cycling on and off without a huge amount of data about whether or not it's working.
Okay.
And not really a good subjective read about whether it's working for me. And not a huge amount of actual scientific, peer-reviewed studies behind it either.
Okay.
Although if you search hard enough, you'll find a confirmation for virtually everything.
Yeah, so true, yeah.
So, I mean, to your question, there's a lot of stuff that is tending in the right direction. I think Whoop, Oura, the tracking stuff, because they're dealing with real data. 8 Sleep and others, they're actually measuring something that's real. I think some of these things, and I don't actually mean those, but some of the devices in that space tend to overpromise what can actually be done. But that's just marketing.
Yeah.
I think we are we're about to see a move from data to usable insights. And I really want to see that and be part of that improvement. I also think that while the existing paradigm of wearables as being the primary vehicle for sleep tracking is, you know, it's what we have. And so to point out problems with it is it's a bit disingenuous because they've done something amazing, right? These devices are absolutely, they're
insane.
I mean, they're incredibly powerful, but the new paradigm is going to be contactless. Contactless sleep tracking is coming.
Wow.
And
how's that going to work?
there's a lot of really interesting stuff. I mean, it's in the frame of what we're building.
That's insane.
But algorithms I say algorithms, but really powerful models that are understanding, for example, how you and your partner's sleep is interacting with each other, how your bedroom is going to be changing the quality of your sleep, things that we're doing in relation to being able to make predictions about whether or not the temperature outside and the weather forecast is going to have an impact on your sleep quality. The change of seasons gives rise to changes in sleep.
Seasonal depression is a big thing, right?
It's a big thing.
Yeah.
So, and being able to make predictions about how the level of your exercise and potentially other physiological markers are going to give rise to changes in your sleep and your daytime energy. So I think we're moving from that sort of pure data readout into much more interesting and usable information, and also smarter and smarter homes.
Yeah.
So the lighting all around your home in the next 5 to 10 years will be circadian. I mean, it seems absurd to me, the idea that we would be 10 years down the line and your lighting would not be biorhythmic and following the movement of your circadian rhythm, so that all the things that we talked about before about making sure you get nice warm red light in the evening, your home should do that for you.
Almost like if you come home from work at a certain time and it's dark outside, it'll give you maybe a lower level light to ease you into. And then as you're walking through the house, like the lights, almost like sensor lights, come on and they follow you around, warmer for the evening, brighter for the morning, that kind of thing.
It won't be like a great big flashlight in your face.
No, you just won't even notice it probably.
And maybe your teenage child will have a slightly different lighting schedule that's appropriate for them. The full biorhythmicity, and also taking that into your office as well, because normally we're sitting in an office with, I go to a co-working space and it's got mood lighting that just makes me fall asleep, right? It's like, it's not really very stimulating during the day. And I think we're moving away from everything being like a really nice, warm, cinematic cafe mood to actually, this is a place for work. It should have a little bit more intensity, or maybe you can seek out that intensity in other ways. You can have a stimulating environment during the day and then a lesser stimulating one in the evening. I think we're at a point where all of these things are going to come together. Wearables, software, devices are going to conspire to make our lives just a lot better for sleeping.
I'm excited to see what's going to
me too.
come out of the woodwork. I mean, I'm already, like, even before this, I've been looking at just little things like you said, like the red light therapy, the glasses, getting a Whoop band, all these, like even getting the Oura-ring, these things I guess the question people will have a lot of time as well is, it's expensive, right? Like these things cost money. And I think like that's why things like subscription models, so like Zoe and Whoop and I think it's the Oura, is it like £50 up for, is it like a one-off payment and you pay like a subscription or something?
I think I got in so early that I got like an early adopters
early bird.
freebie. Yeah. So I have no idea. I would say for most people, it's
affordable.
It may be worth it. It may be well worth it. It'll probably be most worth it in the first month that you have it.
Yeah, of course.
You see,
yeah.
And so when we've worked with scientists who've been heavily involved in the Team GB Olympics preparation.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of the work that we've been doing, a lot of the people that I was mentioning when I spoke to people initially were involved in all of that work. Athletes use Whoop bands. This is true.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But they don't recommend, if they're trying to improve somebody's sleep, they won't say, okay, now you must buy an Oura ring. What they'll do is they'll do a two week to a month long actimetry, so like movement based, like what Oura does, movement based sleep analysis, and say, this is where you take a benchmark. This is what your sleep is doing now. Keep a sleep diary. Let's figure out a few interventions that we can make to improve your sleep. And then let's come back to it in a couple of months and figure out whether or not your sleep has improved. And that's much more how they monitor these things.
So interesting. Jeez. Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
Because I first went to a bunch of sleep scientists and I said, I want to make a wearable. So when we first started, everybody said, you should make a wearable and you should make a smart bed. And that's what we have right now. We've got a world of lots of wearables and lots of smart beds. And I went to sleep scientists, lots of them, and they all told me, you don't need a wearable to improve your sleep. And do you really want a smart bed? Is that really necessary? And we looked at it and realized, yeah, maybe not. And so with that level of certainty, we thought, okay, let's sit on this for a while and really just state this technology piece rather than just going headlong into building a wearable.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it sounds amazing. I'm really excited to see it. You're also building something else there, cabin.
Yes.
Tell me about, there's a hotel business design. Is it more like I looked at it online. Is it for everyone? Is it creators? Is it entrepreneurs?
So what there is online is kind of, it's vague by design.
Okay.
Just because we had to we were getting something live early on. It's a passion project that's been a passion project for many years now, kind of idea, and is now becoming real. I mean, very real, and it's going to be built. So Cabin, the full name is Cabin Anthology. Yeah, and the idea of the anthology is that we want to build projects all over the world, where you get to build your story as you go around the world. I like to think of my travels. I've been, really fortunate. I've done a lot of backpacking, and I think that there are like different parts of my travels have opened up different chapters of understanding myself, understanding, you know, where I am in life. And we want to kind of capture that in the name. But the idea is pretty simple. Luxury hotels have not really stepped up to understand what it is that people really want to do now when they travel, right? Gone are the days, I think, where you expect to go on a really nice vacation and all you will do on that vacation is a stack of Stephen King and John Grisham novels or whatever it is you're into, and then just like vegetate by the beach like like a whale, and just kind of like and drink daiquiris. No one imagines that is the ideal holiday anymore.
No,
but like
of course
20
not.
years ago, that was.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's what you did.
Everyone did the same thing.
Because everybody went to an office during the day and you were surrounded by people, so you wanted to be alone, and you wanted to get time with your partner because you didn't see them much during the week, etc. There's a whole load of reasons.
Changed now, haven't we?
Now, everyone is traveling with a laptop. I don't know anybody who goes on holiday and doesn't have it there just in case and doesn't want to do like a couple of hours of work. And most people are traveling now and thinking, and this is across the age ranges from millennials to boomers and down to Gen Z. People are traveling and they're thinking, I don't understand why I have to leave. I don't understand. I've just got to the beautiful island. I've done my 2 weeks of vacation. I don't know why I should now go home if I can just carry on my laptop for another 2 weeks.
Yeah, remotely.
And I've tried to cobble together an experience that would be satisfactory for several years. Did a lot of backpacking. I went from Patagonia to New York by bus, back in my early 20s.
How long did that take?
That was like 5-6 months. We did one boat and a couple of little like return journeys by plane, but that doesn't really count. And then became a lawyer and did a bunch of like really fancy 5-star travel.
Nice.
And then Airbnb came out, and then post-COVID me and my partner have been doing these sort of long Airbnb trips, and none of it is satisfactory.
Yeah, I was about to say, is this like, where does this sit in terms of like, is it almost in between like hotel and Airbnb, where you've got the luxury and the comfortableness of a hotel, but the freedom and the flexibility of an Airbnb almost, where they've come together?
It's
sort of
a lot of that.
Yeah.
So what it is a luxury 5-star hotel that is capable, first and foremost, that's capable of long stays. So there's specific accommodation that's there for you to stay for a month, 2 months if you want to.
Sweet.
In paradise, right? So if you, all the amenities of a 5-star hotel. So you can carry on with your gym routine. You can eat really healthy food. You can go diving. You can swim in between your Zoom calls.
Yeah.
And then you can get back into your co-working and, carry on working. And then co-working. So you've got really nice co-working spaces. You can have a screen and whatever. The first is going to be in Zanzibar. So you imagine you rock up to Zanzibar and you've got your big screen, your mouse, keyboard set up, all there in the co-working space, and you'll be able to carry on working. And the last thing, and probably the most important, is community. So that you can go as a solo traveler or as a couple, and you will meet people and be around other people and have like a really connected experience where we have beautiful shared dining tables and experiences that are driven, by this connectivity. So that's what we're building. The goal is to build 10 of these destinations, 200 bed hotels over the next 10 years. We got like an elite team, from the producers of Coachella to people who've built 5-star, like the most luxurious 5-star hotels in the world. My dad, who's designed 5-star hotels all over Africa. And
Tanzania,
Tanzania, he's done loads of them.
First edition is Zanzibar, Tanzania. Welcome guests, summer 2026.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my jaunts around the world at the moment are looking at sites, looking at meeting with investors, making sure we bring in the right people. So it's huge. It's exciting. It's going to have the best sleep tech in the world. Like the bedrooms are going to be amazing. So all of that stuff is like really coming together, because we do a lot of hotel work in Owl Lark. So that's really exciting. Just building this great experience that I really want it. I want it for myself, and I want to share it with people. Yeah.
Well, it's the best way to work on it. Do something you actually enjoy and actually you're interested in, and then it'll just always feel like not work, right? And you'll always be. It's still work. I know when people fight, everyone's like, you'll find something you love and you never have to work. I'm like, well, I'm probably working more now actually, but at least you're working for something towards a goal you actually believe in and you understand.
No, it's super fun.
Yeah.
It's like, it's incredibly energizing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So we can do one of these. We can do one of these.
I'll be signed up to
and
these.
we're going to be creating spaces precisely for this.
Yeah, like
because
studio
we know
room-
people want to
yeah,
create. We know people want to make
studios
things.
and
yeah.
I'll be the first to sign up to your. I'll be first on the list.
Okay, great.
Friends and family discount, yeah.
Yeah.
Where do people go if they want to find you, speak to you, get you on podcasts? Where's the best place to?
LinkedIn
Yeah.
is the number one place that I am active, and I guess you'll post the
We'll put all the links and everything, the website, everything like that. Yeah.
LinkedIn is my primary place.
Cool.
I think I've done like 3 tweets, so don't go and look at them. But LinkedIn is my place. And yeah, I'm an inconstant Instagrammer, so that's where you'll find me.
Perfect. No, thank you so much for coming
Thank
today.
you.
I really appreciate it. It's been really, really insightful. I
Yeah,
feel like I've
super
learned a lot
interesting
about
conversation.
how much sleep I'm not getting and how much sleep I should be getting.
You said 10 hours.
Well, yeah, but I don't think it's good REM sleep though. I still wake up, still tired. I'm tired. I had 9 hours last night. I'm still knackered. But I think that's for other things I need to probably figure out as well, underline. But
We'll talk
that's for
afterwards.
another. That's
We'll
for
talk
another
afterwards.
episode.
We'll figure out a plan.
Thank you so much, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you.